Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
I'm your host, Ryan Mauser, and I want to say thank you for tuning in, as this will be my debut for the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm real excited here to talk about some basketball with you guys and just the NBA in general. I mean, it's been a pretty great season so far. We haven't had too much chaos going on, especially with the COVID going on around it, the no fans, but we've had a good season so far. Lots of fun NBA action going on. I mean, you have some rookies that are balling out that I want to get into and talk a little about later. You have the 76ers, who we've all heard that the trust the process, Joelle Embiid, Ben Simmons, those guys, and what they've built with Daryl Morey and now Doc Rivers. And are they a true contender? Then you have the Brooklyn Nets, who went out and made the big splash move of bringing in James Harden and getting that thing going. But are they a true finals contender? Can they be? It's one of those questions that's really on my mind with them. And so I want to get into that a little bit later, but I want to start right here. Because the big talk that's going on right now is everyone's chatting about the MVP race. And I know, we got plenty of time. We're still months away from a winner being announced, and there's so much basketball left that it's way too early to even say who is the favorite or front runner, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about the MVP and who I think should be the favorite right now at the moment. If it ended today, who I think should win the MVP, because without this guy, this team would be so bad and so far down in the standings that it's insane. And that man is a former two-time MVP, the first unanimous MVP, Steph Curry. I'm here in the Bay Area, where I am located at, and in the Bay, Steph is probably the number one athlete that is, I don't want to say protected, but you say Steph in the Bay Area and people throw their arms up and they defend this guy because he does get slandered a decent amount for being a two-time MVP, three-time finals champion. But there's something about him that irks people, and whether it's his stature or they don't like that he changed the league and how it's three-ball centric and all of that. But he's a phenomenal player. I mean, obviously, he's one of the greatest basketball players ever. He legitimately changed the game of basketball by being the best three-point shooter and most efficient three-point shooter we've ever seen, and revolutionized the game in that way. But again, he was the first ever unanimous MVP. And to take nothing away from other guys who are playing phenomenal right now. I mean, you look and you see the LeBron James, who, in all honesty, could be MVP every single season. He is still the best player in the world. But, and then you have also Joelle Embiid, who's playing phenomenal right now. And he has his team in first place in the East, and they're rocking and rolling, and they're kind of clicking and figuring out who. We'll get into them a little bit more later on, because I am intrigued with the Sixers, but I'm going to focus on Steph right now, because Steph Curry has a Warriors team that's missing Klay Thompson, that is now a few years removed from having Kevin Durant, and they'll play tomorrow night, and we'll get to see Kevin Durant's return to the Chase Center, or not return to Chase Center, but return to face his former team. He will now visit Chase Center for the first time. As they didn't meet last year. That was the game that actually got postponed right when this COVID stuff kind of blew up and shut the league down. But Steph Curry, who last year we didn't get to see him very much as he broke his hand in the fourth game and missed most of the season. I think he only played, it was about 10 games last year. So we missed Steph Curry last year. And the big question was, all right, well, how is Steph going to come back and play without Kevin Durant? We hadn't seen it for a while. It was, okay, what's gonna happen? What's this team going to look like? And then come draft night, and you knew the Warriors had the number 2 pick, and you get the news that Klay Thompson was now done for the season. He had ruptured his Achilles tendon, and you knew that now his backcourt mate, his splash brother, was gone. And you wondered, is Steph Curry the guy to lead the team by himself? Can he do it all? Can he be the Steph Curry that we've seen before without his heavy-loaded teammates? And it was a fair question to ask because, yes, we'd seen Steph Curry put up insanely great numbers. I mean, you don't become a unanimous MVP without doing that. And he's a 2-time MVP and finals champion, but he always had a Klay Thompson or Kevin Durant with him in the mix. And so it was a question coming in. And this season, it was, all right, well, he's going to be surrounded by Andrew Wiggins, who there are still question marks out about Andrew Wiggins, and his time in Minnesota wasn't what people expected from a number 1 overall pick, and he wasn't living up to his expectations that people had hoped for. And so it was, okay, well, he's going to have Andrew Wiggins. He has Draymond Green, but is Draymond the same guy that he was years ago, where he was the defensive player of the year and that linchpin for that team of just that force that they had? So there's that question. And then it was, well, who else is going to be able to step up? You had rookie and James Wiseman, and it's, well, he's a rookie, so how much are you really expecting from Wiseman right off the bat? On a team that you can say that the Warriors have championship aspirations. I mean, they're a franchise that with Steph Curry and with Klay Thompson, with Draymond Green, that's their goals now. It's no more of the we believe, we're one of the worst teams, but we're fun to watch. No, this is a title contending, hopeful team. I mean, Joe Lacob puts his money out there and says, no, we're going to spend because we want that. That's what our goals are. So you have that. So you can't expect Steph to sit back and go, oh, well, I don't have my splash brother. I don't have my partner in KD as he's left now. And, well, I guess I'll just go out and play and be mediocre. No, he was nicknamed the Human Torch for a reason. And part of that is because he is so great at this game of basketball, and he's so efficient of a shooter. And we, even with teams focusing on him, because you're not going to have to focus on Draymond Green shooting the basketball, because it's just, it's not anything that you fear. You're not going to have to focus on Andrew Wiggins as much, because Andrew Wiggins is still trying to figure out where he belongs with the team and in the NBA. He's not a number 1. Now he's on a team, and this is the first year he's actually playing with Steph, because they didn't really play together last year, except for 2 games. And then they brought in Kelly Oubre, and you went, okay, well, Kelly Oubre, that's a nice role piece. But again, that's not Klay Thompson. That's not Kevin Durant. And what has Steph Curry done this season with being the one guy that every team focuses on day in and day out against the Warriors? 30 points a game, 49% from the field. He's shooting 43 from the 3. I mean, the guy is putting up miraculous numbers, and he's going out, and he's fun as hell to watch each night. You have him. He scored 62 points. He has a 57-point game. The guy is carrying this Warriors team as far as he can take them at the moment. And they sit in the Western Conference. They would be a playoff team right now. So the Warriors are right there at that 8th seed. They're 14-12. And a lot of people like to bash the fact that they're not having a better record. And that, you can't be an MVP if your team isn't a top 4 seed, or that you don't have more wins than this, and being only 14-12. And granted, it's early again. So we will he will add wins. This team will be there, and they may not be a top 4 team by the end of it. But again, I mean, you look at the standings, and what separates 4th from 8th is only a couple games. It's not much. So a swing like that, they're right there. And before the season started, I had picked Steph to be the MVP. I thought the Warriors would be a top 4 team, and the only way they are going to be a top 4 team is if Steph Curry is leading them and playing like an MVP. Because without that, then the Warriors don't have the firepower to do that. I mean, you're not going to get Kelly Oubre, Andrew Wiggins, Juan Toscano Anderson. No offense to those guys, but they're not the superstars that Steph Curry is. And you rely on your superstars to lead your team and to be the guy, and to, when they don't have someone, it's to carry them and get to that point. And this whole, I don't get the whole, where Rick Bucher said, he tweeted out, I'm going to paraphrase that, I don't get the whole overblown celebration of what Steph's doing right now for a team that's only 13-12, and it's not overly impressive. It shouldn't be, because they're not winning as much. And that's just, yes, they're not winning as much, but you look at what's on his team. I mean, those guys are not the supporting cast that you would expect to provide a ton and help out and get to be the top 4 team. And if you take Steph off that team, they're 14-12 right now. Steph hasn't missed a game this season. If you took him off that team, how many wins do they have? 5? Are they the worst team in the league? Are they pushing the Timberwolves, who sit at 6-20? Because without Steph, they're looking at the bottom of the league, and that they're in the lottery yet again. But because Steph is the great player that he is and playing like an MVP, they're right in the playoff race, and they have hopes of getting in the playoffs and making some noise and having a bit of a run. Will they win the title this year? No, they won't, because they don't have Klay Thompson, and without Klay Thompson, they don't have the firepower to win a title. But to think that Steph's not the MVP because, they don't have as many wins as you need, and for that fact, he's not the MVP, and he needs to win more. And look at the guys around him. He is elevating all of those guys. And what do great players do? They elevate everyone else around them, and they make guys perform better than they're expected. You have Juan Toscano Anderson, who was in the G League 2 years ago, starting for them and playing well enough and providing some help, whether he's starting or coming off the bench. Andrew Wiggins is looking like a guy who, this is more of a player that we thought we were going to get. A little bit of the pressure's off of him, and he doesn't have to be the number one option on a team that doesn't know really how to play together. And he's showing that, he's still 25. He still has a bright future going on. And Draymond Green may not be the same level of player that he once was. But again, having Steph back has allowed him to play better than he did last year. I mean, last year it was a rough watch to watch these to watch the Warriors last year without Steph, without Klay, with Draymond surrounded by, at the time, D'Angelo Russell and Marquise Chris playing and all those guys. And it was tough for them. And there's a reason why they had one of the worst records in the league and only 15 wins. And they get their guy back. You get your star players back. Where would the Bucks be without Giannis? Where would the Lakers be without LeBron James? Where would the Clippers be without Kawhi Leonard? All these teams need their superstar. And if you take them off the team, they're just not the same. Yeah, they're probably going to still be better than the Warriors, though, is the thing. Because at least they have an Anthony Davis, a Paul George. Say what you will about Chris Middleton, but he's still an all-star. Right now, the Warriors do not have another all-star. Draymond Green once was, and he once was a great player. Is he that same guy? I don't think so. I mean, he's taken a lot of wear and tear on his body for the deep playoff runs, the deep battles he's had, the fighting centers, and going against guys who are bigger than him. And I'm not saying it's a runaway for Steph to be the MVP. It's close, and everything can still happen and change, and there's lots that's going to go on between now and June when it's announced. But to discredit Steph and say he can't be the MVP because of their record blows my mind away. Because the only way they even have a plus 500 record is because of what Steph's doing. And it's wins. I don't want to say wins are overrated. But I mean, you look at how the Cy Young Award has changed in the MLB. Is that it used to be, a pitcher had to have X amount of wins. And without that number of wins, they're automatically disqualified from being the Cy Young. Well, then they went and looked at the numbers and went, that pitcher may have gone 6 innings or 7 innings or 8 innings and many starts, and his bullpen blew it, and he didn't get the win. That's not his fault. He did all the things that he was supposed to do. But again, they play team sports. It's not tennis. You're playing a team sport. You need other guys to help out. If your team lacks that, you can only do so much to get them to be winning. It's just the way it is. No offense to them, and no offense to the other guys that Steph has as teammates, but they're not at the level that the Sixers, the Lakers, the Bucks, the Jazz right now are to be able to rely on these other guys to contribute enough to be a playoff team. So Steph is 100% playing like an MVP. And he's being a leader like an MVP. He's showing these guys, here, you know what? You need me to do more, I can do more. You need me to score 62? I'll score 62. But guess what? It sometimes isn't enough because the talent around him isn't the same. And it's not an excuse, it's facts. This team doesn't have the same talent as those other teams. That doesn't stop Steph from being an MVP player. And that's what's frustrating to me, because all these players are great, and take them individually and watch them individually and see what they do. And you can see how great they play. And I love LeBron James, and I'm a huge LeBron fan. I think he should be the MVP every single year because he's the best player in basketball. Michael Jordan could have been the MVP every single year, but it's not the way it works. But to say that, you can't be the MVP because you don't have enough wins. Your team doesn't have enough wins. Yeah, it's a team sport. We're not giving out MVPs to every single player on every team. It's one guy who had a tremendous, great year. And right now, in my opinion, that is Steph Curry. And he's easily the MVP in my eyes right now. Now, again, I'm going to say this as many times as I can. We are a long way from deciding that. And that we have a long season to go, and many things will change, and Steph will be the MVP one day, and LeBron will be the favorite, and Joelle Embiid, and by the end of it, we'll have our winner. And even, I shouldn't exclude this man, and I want to talk about them next, Kevin Durant, who is putting up an MVP season as well, and his Brooklyn Nets, who went out and acquired James Harden. They're trying to figure it out. And they'll take on Steph and the Warriors tomorrow night, so that'll be an exciting one. But all these guys have rightful claims to be the MVP, but in my eyes, right now it's Steph. But I just don't want people to solely focus on wins and losses, taking away from the guy being able to be in the MVP discussion. Because I hear that all the time, and it's on the national talk shows, it's on Twitter, and yeah, those aren't final says or anything, but that's what's getting buzzed around right now, is that, you got to have X amount of wins, or Steph's team's not winning enough, so he can't be the MVP. Go watch him play. If you go watch him play, you see this guy is incredible. He is playing like an MVP, and 100% should be in the discussion for MVP. Because the guy is phenomenal, and we got to enjoy these players while we have them. Too many times, enjoy them while they're playing the game. too many times we go and, I can't stand that player. And go, if you enjoy basketball, you are so happy that we have Steph Curry, Kevin Durant back playing after missing a season. We can't wait to have Klay Thompson come back because the game is better with these players playing, and it's the bottom line. It's been fun to watch. It's been fun to just have the Warriors playing well and have their guy back and exciting basketball, and they're not a drag of a dumpster fire team to watch. But I just want to focus on the fact that the MVP should not be boggled down to wins and losses. It's watch the player, and if you have someone else being MVP, that's completely fine. I'm not opposed to if you have Joelle Embiid, LeBron James, Giannis, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, anyone. But don't discredit Steph as, he can't be a part of it because of the fact that his team doesn't have enough wins. That's just absurd because it's a team sport and he can't do everything by himself. So that's where I'm at with the MVP. Again, long way to go. It'll play itself out, and even when it happens and they announce the winner, someone's going to be upset because everyone always is. Because you can't give out 5 MVPs, even though 5 people may deserve it. It's just the way it is. We're going to take a break. When we come back, though, I mentioned that Kevin Durant, who's playing extremely well and could well be in the MVP conversation, his squad, the Brooklyn Nets, acquired James Harden, trying to pair him and Kyrie Irving, all 3 of those guys together, and make a run at an NBA title. Are they true contenders? I'm not quite so sure yet, but we'll see, and I'll tell you why I'm not sure. And that's coming up next on the GSMC Basketball Podcast. So stay right there, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alrighty, welcome on back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm Ryan Mauser. Thank you again for tuning in, as this is my debut for GSMC Podcast Network. All right, last segment, I talked about the MVP and why I think Steph Curry should be the favorite right now. Again, we have a long ways to go with that race. There's a guy I mentioned who also should be in consideration, and I want to focus on his team right here. Because Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets are playing good basketball. I wouldn't say great because, again, they got to figure it out. They have a new team, essentially, a full-on new team. And these guys didn't get to play with each other last year. I mean, KD and Kyrie. KD missed the entire season. Kyrie missed a majority of the season. And now Karis LeVert's gone. And Spencer Dinwiddie's out for the season. And they brought in James Harden and Jared Allen's gone. So it's a whole... And they even have a new coach, Steve Nash, who's first year as a coach. And they have a lot of expectations because coming into the year, it was, okay, well, with Kyrie and KD, they're automatically a playoff team. But people looked at them more than just a playoff team. It was, this team is a title contending team, and they can win the title, and they might face the Lakers or the Clippers or whoever comes out from the West. And yeah, I do like the Nets team, but I don't think they're a true title contender. This team with James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, they just do not play enough defense for me to where they can be a true championship team. Because at the end of the day, the old saying is defense wins championships. I don't care if we're talking about football, basketball. When the Warriors were winning their dynastic run, having titles, they had a lockdown defense. And Kevin Durant was a part of that, but it was also having Draymond Green, who Defensive Player of the Year, Klay Thompson, one of the best two-way players, if not the best two-way players in the league. Andrew Bogut being in the back end and shutting things down. The Warriors' culture, it had defense that led to their offense. This Nets team is the opposite. They have no defense, but they have a hell of an offense. I think they're second in the league in points scored. And when you have James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, you're going to be able to outscore almost every team in the league. I mean, that's a three-headed monster that no one wants to run into in the playoffs. But if you can't get stops, then it doesn't matter how many points you're scoring. That team can score with you. If you can't get someone to take the ball out of bounds and just lock them up, and you're in trouble. And for this team, it's there's no space on their team right now, with especially after trading Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie being hurt, and Kevin Durant's a good defender, but again, he's coming off a serious injury, and you don't want him necessarily guarding the other team's best player off that injury. It's a tough ask for him, for the sheer fact that he's coming off an Achilles tear, and it's not necessarily easy to just go guard LeBron James for 40 minutes. Or hey, why don't you go lock up Kawhi Leonard, and while also doing that, we need you to score 30 points. Or hey, your assignment is going to be Giannis tonight. We want you there. We need you to lock him up and also score for us. The Nets are really fun to watch. But I call them this. They're a great 2K team. Because if you're playing 2K and you see someone chooses the Nets, you're like, come on, man. Anyone but them. You can't be the Nets. Come on, it's not fair. Like, let's be real. It's what the Warriors used to be. It was, come on, you can't be the Warriors. We're playing 2K. Let's go. You can be someone else. Because in that game, if you score, you score. It's a video game. And they're fun to watch. And they're fun to play a video game with. But when it comes down to it, and you need stops, and you need that team to be shut down and not score the basket, can you rely on the Nets to do that? Who are you looking at? Because James Harden's not going to give you the defense you want. Kyrie Irving, he's not been a defender. DeAndre Jordan, yeah, he once was a defensive player of the year candidate and I believe winner. But that's not who he is anymore. He's not giving you that. He's not the same guy who the Clippers locked in the house to keep from going to Dallas. And at the end of the day, I need a team that I can trust defensively. What was the big thing for the Lakers last year? How they won the title. They got better on defense. They learned how to stop guys. They had AD back there and LeBron locked up. And Kuzma started to figure out, and Caruso helped out, and KCP. That's what helped them win the title. Why was Miami so tough in the East, and why did they make a finals run? It's because they had dogs that were going to lock you up on defense and play and force you tough shots and empty possessions. This Nets team, they don't do that. And it's why I look at them and I go, I can't put them as an actual finals contender and winner. I just don't see it. The East is tough. And it's not extremely deep, obviously. And the East that's been the East's biggest problem for a long time, is that they don't have the deepest of teams, and it's very top heavy. You have the Sixers, Bucks, Nets. I'd throw the Celtics in there, and don't count out the Raptors. Raptors, who got off to a 2-8 start, but they're 12-14, and they're tough, and they have championship DNA, and they've been there, and they know what to do, and they're a well-coached team. They'll figure it out. They'll finish at least a 5 seed, even if they're not. That's a team none of these top teams want to face, is the Raptors. You don't want to get into a 7-game series against the Raptors when you could get into a 7-game series against the Knicks or the Hawks or the Bulls, who are all right in that range of potential playoff teams. But again, we're early, and the Nets still have time to figure it out. And I'm not saying they won't figure it out, but right now, with the way this team's constructed, they're not a good defensive team, and that will be their downfall. Because in the 7-game series, you're going to need some games where you're not scoring 120 points. It's going to be a 98 to 90 game. Can you get that stop? Can you force that team not in the triple digits and not to break the century mark? They're really fun to watch. They're really good to bet on if you have an over, because they allow a lot of points and they score a lot of points. And they're really fun to play as in 2K. But when it comes to winning a title and being a legitimate championship contending team, right now, I have them on the outside. I have them behind the Sixers, who I do want to get into next and talk about them, and if they're ready to finally finish the process that they trusted and they started years ago, and if they'll be an actual finals team as well, and if they're finally ready to push through. But I'd put the Nets behind them. I'd still put the Nets right now behind the Bucks as a true title contending team. And again, it all goes to matchups and playoff matchups and what happens if you don't have to play certain teams, if you get an easier matchup than someone. I mean, hell, right now, again, super early, but the Bucks would match up with the Raptors in the first round. That is not a fun matchup for the Bucks. That would be a tough first-round series. So with the Nets, they get the Hornets, who the Hornets are a lot of fun. And at the end, I want to talk about this rookie class of players and whether LaMelo Ball, should he have been the actual number 1 pick? We'll talk about the Hornets and LaMelo and Wiseman and Anthony Edwards at the end in this rookie class. That's very fun to watch. And there's some guys in this class that, whew, the league has a bright future. I really like some of these players in there. So we'll talk about at the very end. But if the Nets were matched up against the Hornets, you go, okay, they'd beat the Hornets. They'd beat the Hornets in a 7-game series, probably. They might sweep them. It might be 5 games. To the Bucks, that could be a 6 or 7-game series. And then you would have, okay, so now the Nets move on, and they're facing the Raptors. And the Bucks, they don't even have to worry about who was a team that I put them behind. So, okay, maybe they beat the Raptors, and then they go and face the Sixers. That could easily happen. Or you get it to where it's the Sixers. In the second round, they run into Boston. And Boston and Philadelphia, for some reason, it's always a tough matchup. They always have tight games. And in the playoffs the last few years, guess who's been kryptonite for the Sixers? Oh, yeah, Boston. Boston has caused issues for the Sixers and have eliminated them a couple times in the playoffs. So again, it all comes down to matchups, and the Nets can totally get to the finals. But I don't see them, with it constructed right now, being a legitimate championship team. They're fun. I enjoy watching them. They need to get better on defense. Without getting better on defense, frankly, they just don't have enough. Can they go out and get better on defense? Well, you can go check the market. You can go find someone, help out, shore it up. They just made a trade with Cleveland. Could they go get Andrew Drummond? Maybe. Maybe not. There's moves out there, and they're a smart team. I mean, you don't get this level of talent together and not, but as of right now, they're just not a title contending team. Which is a bummer, in my opinion, because I would love to see the Nets versus the Lakers. I think that'd be a great finals matchup. Because out west, I have the Lakers making it to the finals. I have them defending the title and winning it again. But a series with Kevin Durant in the East, LeBron James in the West, Kyrie Irving faces LeBron James once again, Anthony Davis going up against KD down in a battle of the game in the paint, 2 7-footers that can shoot threes and ball handle, and Steve Nash coaching in a finals game. I would love to see the Nets get there. And I hope they turn around and they get better on defense and they figure out a little more offensively of what to do and how to get their offense run. But again, they need some work. They need to go make some moves and get some pieces added to help out. Because for the East not even being as deep as the West, to where the West, it's tough in the West. I mean, you have the Nuggets and the Warriors sitting at 7 and 8 respectively. And those are two teams, the Nuggets, who were just in the Western Conference Finals last year. The Warriors, for years, were in the finals every single season. And they're the 7 and 8 seed. To in the East, you don't have that level, but right now, the Miami Heat, who were in the finals last year, are the 9 seed just on the outside looking in and can get into the playoffs easily. The Raptors, the 7 seed. Hell, even the Knicks are giving people problems this year. Even the Knicks are playing well-ish. I won't say they're playing great, but the Knicks, you run into the Knicks in the playoff series, you're going to be fighting. It could be a 6-game series you run into them on the wrong days. You have some bad games, you have a bad shooting night. The worst thing you can do when playing a bad team is let their confidence rise and they start hitting shots. Because the minute you give a team confidence, which the Nets tend to do because of the fact that their defense is so bad, is that these bad teams are finding shots and hitting their shots and getting confidence in them. You never want a bad team to get confidence. Because at the end of the day, all these teams and all these players are NBA players for a reason. All of them. And if you allow them to get confidence in their shots and find their stroke, you're in trouble. And that's why the Nets sit at 7 and 11 against under 500 teams. They just lost to Detroit, who is not a good team, is in fact one of the worst teams in the NBA. But you lost because you let them find their stroke and they got hot and you couldn't stop them once they got up. Now imagine if that happens against the Sixers with Seth Curry, who is on pace to be the first player to go 50, 50, and 100% from the 3, from the field, and from the free throw line. You let that guy get hot, you're deep in trouble in the playoffs. You want Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday to be knocking down shots and Pat Connaughton. You want to go Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart. You let Marcus Smart get confidence and start hitting threes, it's lights out. You're done. Because when he's hitting shots and he's feeling confident, he can shoot you into a win and shoot you out of a win pretty quickly. Brooklyn needs to lock down, figure it out on defense, because they don't have to worry about anything on offense. They have 3 of the top scorers in the NBA. And on most nights, that'll be enough. But when the playoffs come, things get a little bit tighter. Pressure gets a little bit stronger. And you're more in your head, and every possession counts just a bit more. You need to rely on being able to get a stop, force teams into some bad shots, and not have to score 120 points every game to win. Because against these better teams in the playoffs, against the Bucks, against Sixers, against Celtics, and if you make it to the finals against the Lakers or Clippers, or we'll throw the Jazz in there for the time being because they do have the best record in the NBA at 21-5, you need to get stops. And without that, without being able to lock down, there's just no winning that game. And there's no winning in the playoffs without defense. So Brooklyn, you have some time. There's still a trade deadline. You can still, once the buyout market happens, see what goes on with that. And turn this thing around. And get better at defense. And not have to score so much every game. And get into these shootouts. To where you're going, hey, KD, James, Kyrie, can you bail us out tonight? Because we need you to make a furious comeback. And we've seen it in games where they lost against the Wizards, to where they blew it because their defense couldn't get a stop at the end, and they were undisciplined. For this team to be a true title contender, it's going to come down to their defense and if they're ready to play or not. And right now, I have them not ready to play, but lucky for them, it's only February, and there's a long way till April. All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll come back on the GSMC podcast, basketball podcast, because I want to talk about the Sixers. And this Sixers team has looked pretty good. We've all heard the moniker of trust the process. It was trust the process. They'll get there one day. They'll be there. There'll be this team. They were tanking for picks and tanking for guys like Ben Simmons and Joelle Embiid, and it was trust the process. We'll get there. And that was years ago. And now it's time to see if the process has worked and they can finally get over the hump. I'll let you know if I think they can on the other side. And later on, at the very end, I want to talk about this NBA rookie class. Because guys like LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, and James Wiseman, and there's 2 other names that I want to throw out there who have been fantastic to watch that I feel get slept on. But that'll come up later. For right now, we'll take a break on the GSMC basketball podcast, on the GSMC podcast network. I'm Ryan Mauser. We'll be right back. Stay right there.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alrighty, welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Your host, Ryan Mauser, making my debut for the GSMC Podcast Network. Thank you so much for sticking around, tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. We've talked some MVP talks. We had some Brooklyn Nets talks, and I may be a little hard on them, but I want to see them succeed, and I want to see them do well, and I'm a big fan of KD, and I want to see him get back to title contending. This next team I want to talk about, I loved the Trust the Process moniker. I was all for it. TTP, Trust the Process. I understood it. Tank for a while, reap the rewards. Sam Hinkie had the idea, put this plan in motion and said, all right, let's tank. Let's get the first overall pick. They drafted Ben Simmons. It was all right. Well, let's. He's a little hurt. Let's sit him out. So he sat for a year. Same thing with Joelle Embiid. It was all right. Well, we got the third overall pick, and let's get JoJo, the big center from Kansas, who had some foot issues. All right. Well, we'll sit him out. We'll ease him, and then we'll have our guy. And so the Trust the Process went into effect. And the Sixers, who for a long time were a really, really bad franchise, had some dark years. Losing record numbers of games. And people were unhappy because, well, you can't tank. Tanking shouldn't be allowed. That's not right. You shouldn't tank. We want you to play your heart out. Well, they tanked. And they won't admit that they tanked because technically you'd get fined and in trouble. But that's what they did. And the rewards was they got Ben Simmons, they got Joelle Embiid, and we trusted the process, and we're a playoff team, and we have title aspirations. And they ran into the Celtics and got eliminated, but hey, it's okay. They're a young team. It was their first playoff experience again, and they'll get there. They'll be back. And then it was, we ran into Kawhi Leonard, and in Game 7, he hit an unbelievable shot that bounced 3 times and went in and eliminated them in Game 7. All right. It happens. You were there. You were right there on the cusp. Can't blame them for that. They'll be back. They're learning. They're getting better. Well, then you hear last year, and they have all these goals and expectations that, okay, they'll be a playoff team. They'll get back there. And then what happens? You start to hear rumblings, and can Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons coexist? Because Ben Simmons can't shoot the ball or won't shoot the ball. Does this team have enough shooting surrounding Ben Simmons? And Joel Embiid likes to play in the post, and he wants to get the ball and back someone down or shoot some threes and not necessarily shoot them efficiently. And it was, can this team coexist together? Can these be the guys? And guess who the Sixers got matched up with in the playoffs last year? Their old friends, the Boston Celtics. And what happened in the bubble? Yep. Bye-bye Sixers. Celtics win again. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons cannot move past yet again. And you heard it louder this offseason. Do they have to trade either Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid? If you have to trade Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons, which one do you prefer if you're the Sixers? Who can get the better value on the market? Can you get more for Ben Simmons? Can you get more for Joel Embiid? Ben Simmons can't shoot. These two can't play together. They're better without each other. All of that. Did they surround this team with enough shooting? Well, here we are, February 12th. And as I sit here recording this on that day, and the Sixers currently sit as the 1 seed in the East at 18-8. And they've played really well. Obviously, I mean, they're the 1 seed in the East right now. Long ways to go. Has the process finally been completed and they're ready to compete for a title? Are they ready to get past that hump and complete the process and be a champion? I don't know. This is a weird team. They're run by Doc Rivers now, so they got their new head coach. After firing Brett Brown after 7 seasons with the team and decent amount of success, they decided to move off. They brought in Doc Rivers. And Doc Rivers, who had a title with the Celtics, had the Clippers very close to getting to the Western Conference Finals, but they imploded. And there was question marks about that, and so Doc Rivers was fired. And he winds up in Philadelphia with Joelle Embiid and Ben Simmons, and then Daryl Morey comes over, and he's the new GM after leaving Houston. And there's questions of, will they go after James Harden? Will they swap Ben Simmons for James Harden? Would that work better with Joelle Embiid? And there's those Daryl Morey ties to James Harden. Will they go out there? Well, they decided not to. They don't go get James Harden. James Harden ends up in Brooklyn, and that could be something that comes back to bite them. Because there's a good chance that Brooklyn, as I stated, matches up potentially with the Sixers. And they face each other in the playoffs. And who would have the advantage? That would be an interesting matchup. I don't think the Nets are title contenders truly, as I stated in the last segment, because of the fact that they don't play defense. For the Sixers, they have some good players on defense. Ben Simmons is a really good defender. Joel Embiid is a force at the back end down low, swatting things that come his way. For the Sixers, you're going to need the continued shooting of Seth Curry, who's been playing out of his mind. You're going to need Danny Green to not be the cold shooting Danny Green that the Lakers saw, and that hurt them in the playoffs, but it worked out for them as he was able to do enough, and they had enough around him that team won the title. Matisse Thybulle is a good defender. Can he shoot enough? So the Sixers' questions are different than the Nets. This team has defense. Can they shoot enough when it matters? Can they get enough scoring? Can Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid coexist together? Right now, Joel is playing like an MVP. There's many people who look at him and go, he is the MVP favorite because he's averaging 29 points a game and 10 rebounds and 1.2 blocks, and he's shooting 55% from the field. And his team's the number 1 seed, and rightfully so. Joel Embiid is playing absolutely phenomenal and should be within that conversation of MVP. Now, I still have Steph Curry, as I stated in the first segment. But for the Sixers, can they finally complete the process? This is a team, growing up, I was a huge Allen Iverson fan. Loved Allen Iverson. My favorite player. He was a short guy. I'm a short guy. He was tough. He was fun to watch. He would score on you, look at you, and smirk and go and do it again. And we're talking about practice? No, he didn't want to practice. I loved the Sixers. And then there was the stretch of the horrendous Sixers to where the post Allen Iverson. And they didn't have anyone. And it was very, very brutal for them. And then they got good. And they got Joel. They got Ben. They tanked. And they're back. But they haven't been able to get over that hump. They get to the playoffs. And they're now a perennial playoff team. Which is fun. And you want to be a perennial playoff team. But more than that, you want to be a perennial championship contending team. And for this team who has not been able to get to the Eastern Conference Finals since 2001 to where they made it to the finals, that's a long time. It's 20 years. Can they break that curse this year? Do they have enough? Can Ben Simmons, a guy who in this era of NBA where it's all about the three, who doesn't even want to shoot the three ball. Can that guy truly lead you to the finals? They call him Magic Johnson 2.0. They say this is the closest thing we've had to Magic Johnson. And if he's truly that, he should be able to help you and be the guy to get you there. But can him and Joel coexist together? Or does it work? Right now it's working. And if you watch this team, you go, they do have enough. They got defenders. They got shooting around them with adding Seth. Tobias can shoot enough. Matisse Thybulle is getting better at shooting. Tobias... So, Danny Green, can provide it. Tyrese Maxey, a rookie, coming in and playing well. So they have some pieces. In the end, there is no real favorite out east. I think it could be the Sixers representing them, and I think they can get over the hump of not breaking through and getting to the finals. And they can finally show that the process worked. But for this team with Joel and Ben Simmons, they're reaching a breaking point. And it's almost getting to the point of you got to get to the finals or you have to break these two up. And for right now, this season it looks like, all right, they're going to be a finals team, and maybe these two can coexist together, and they can get it done, and they can play together, and you don't have to break them up. But it's all going to come down because we've seen it before. We've seen it with these two that throughout the regular season, they play well enough, and they're coexisting, and they get to the playoffs, and in those moments is where they shrink. Because in the playoffs, you need your best players on the floor. And for Ben Simmons... he's not a good free throw shooter. A career 59%. Let's just call it 60. Say he's a 60% free throw shooter for his career. This year, he's shooting 64% from the free throw line. In late game situations, teams are going to foul him. And you need him to be able to hit those free throws. He needs to be better shooting the ball. You need him hitting free throws. You need him to attempt threes and at least keep the defense honest. Because if you just continue to allow other teams to sag off and crash and sit back in the paint and all right, well you can try and beat us drive in here. We have 4 guys, we have 3 guys, whatever it is. I would love to see the Sixers play in the finals. Joelle Embiid is a fun player. He gets a bad rap at times. He looks, in years past, like he wasn't fully into certain games or wanting to compete. And this year, he's strapped up, said, let's do it. And he's playing like an MVP. And Ben Simmons is doing his part. He's helping out. He's a great defender. You got Seth Curry, who was a huge addition, and I can't believe that the Mavericks let him go. Because Seth Curry is a sniper. Hell, listen to his last name. It's Curry. Yeah, that family can shoot. In this NBA, you need shooting. So maybe it is just time for the Sixers to complete the process that was started years ago when they said trust it. And the fans bought in, and they deserve to see a Sixers team that makes the finals or has a deep playoff run and gets to the conference finals. Are they ready to do that? With new head coach Doc Rivers? Because when's the last time Doc Rivers led a team to the finals? 2010 with the Celtics. That was a while ago. And the Clippers, who had that historic collapse last year in the playoffs, blowing the 3-1 lead to the Nuggets. Doc Rivers canned afterwards. It seems like he's gotten the Sixers to buy in. They sit at 18-8. They have a guy that's playing like an MVP. Ben Simmons will probably be an all-star. Tobias Harris is a good number 3 option. Seth Curry, whether he's starting, coming off the bench, can provide that spark of energy and scoring that you always need, especially when it comes to the playoffs. You always need 3-point shooting. And that's what they were lacking last year the most, is that they didn't have. They got rid of Landry Shamet. They didn't have. Matisse Thybulle wasn't the shooter that you would hope for. They didn't have a Danny Green out there. For the Sixers right now, it looks really, really good. Can they keep it up? Can they finally complete the process, be the team that many are hoping they can be? Because if they matched up against Milwaukee, I like that matchup for them. Ben Simmons can handle being on Giannis. Tobias Harris can handle being on Giannis. You're never going to completely stop Giannis. That's just, he's too good. He's a 2-time MVP himself. But if you have Joelle Embiid playing at this level the entire season, Ben Simmons a little more aggressive attacking the basket, not necessarily fearing being fouled and getting sent to the free throw line because he's not a great free throw shooter. This team is dangerous. In the East, it probably comes down to about, I'd say, 5 teams that actually will make something in the playoffs. You can toss out the Hornets. You can toss out the Knicks. You can toss out the Pacers. The Sixers can be one of those teams. I think this is the year that the Sixers do get over the hump and make it to the conference finals. I'm not going to say they'll make the finals. I'm still hesitant. I still want to see. We got a long time to go. I'm not quite there yet. But I do like the steps that this team has taken, and it does seem like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are playing together well and have figured it out a bit more. They have a head coach who has been there and has a deep playoff reputation. And they just need it all to come together, and I'm excited to see for the rest of the season whether they can do that or not, because I do like the Sixers, and I do root for them. They have a little special place for me. I was an Allen Iverson fan. I want to see them do well. Joel Embiid's fun. Seth Curry is a lot of fun to watch. I mean, that Curry family shooting, man, how did Dallas let them go? That's huge for me. Luka. Next time, we'll talk about the Mavs next time, because that team, I do not understand them. They are a struggle. But Sixers fans, you've sat through the process, you waited, you dealt with the tanking. Now it's time to look at your team and have some expectation for them to get this done, because they do have the pieces in place. They have a head coach who has a track record of winning. Now is the time for the process to be completed. You should expect this, and you should want this. As all teams want, they want success for their franchise. And Philadelphia is right there this year. They can break through, and you should expect it from them, and you should demand it from them. And anything less should be cause for concern, and have this team look in the mirror and figure out what to do next. Because if they do not make it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals or the Finals, something needs to change, and not just replacing the head coach. Next, coming up on the GSMC Basketball Podcast, I want to talk about the rookies this year, because there's a slew of them that are playing tremendous. And LaMelo Ball is playing so well. Could you reconsider whether he should have been the number 1 overall pick? No offense to Anthony Edwards. No offense to James Wiseman. But LaMelo is special. So I want to get into that next. I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back and finish up talk some NBA rookies, and who's been the biggest surprise so far. It's the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm Ryan Mauser. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm Ryan Mauser. Thank you so much for tuning in, sticking with me, and listening to my debut. It's been a pleasure. We had some fun talking about the MVPs, the Brooklyn Nets, and those Sixers. But right now I want to talk about the young guys, the future of the leagues, and this rookie class of 2020 that has been putting on a show. Now, we all knew coming into the season that it was going to be tough for some of the rookies. It was a new way of doing things. They didn't have the same workouts they normally would have had. It was Zooms and shortened training camps, and the season was going to pick up very, very quickly. And throughout this season, we've seen some flashes here and there from guys, but one guy in particular that has caught everyone's eyes, and he was a big question mark. And it made me think, would he be the number one pick if you had to redo? And that guy is LaMelo Ball. Coming into the season, I did not know what to expect from LaMelo. You didn't get him to see him play in college. He went to Lithuania, played overseas, and you heard all the hype. LeVar Ball, he's known for talking. You saw what he did with Lonzo. Lonzo was the number two overall pick. And then you had the younger son. You have LaMelo, and you're wondering, okay, is this all going to be kind of similar? Because that didn't work out great for Lonzo in LA. He's starting to figure it out a bit more, but it was LaMelo had that funky shot. Everyone looked like that thing won't translate to the league. There's no way. He's just not a good shooter. He can't come to the league and be that bad of a shooter. But he's come into the league, I should say. And he's made the Hornets one of the most fun teams to watch play. They are never out of a game. It's with him running the show, because he's been starting recently now. When Terry Rozier went down with an injury and he got his first start. And he's just played... He's been so fun to watch, averaging almost 14 points a game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. The kid is a lot of fun to watch, and he has them playing well to where they're the 6th seed right now. And will they finish? Will they make the playoffs? We don't know. You don't know, especially with a young team like that, and it doesn't matter. But LaMelo Ball has silenced a lot of people who did not think he'd be successful. And that's not to take anything away from Anthony Edwards, who was the number 1 overall pick, James Wiseman, who is number 2. Those guys have been really well also. James Wiseman dealing with some injuries right now, which is unfortunate because you do want to see how he continues to play. And he had so little amount of college game, playing only the 3 at Memphis, and then all the stuff that went down with that lovely NCAA. But LaMelo has been the best rookie in the NBA. And it does make you think, man, maybe he should have been number 1. What would Minnesota look like if they had him? Should the Warriors have taken LaMelo instead of James Wiseman? Could that backcourt of Steph and LaMelo work out? Steph playing a little bit more off ball with Melo tossing him some dimes for threes? What kind of lanes would be open for LaMelo if Steph was with him and there's the threat of him shooting the 3? What kind of lobs could he toss up? It's interesting. And take away nothing from Anthony Edwards, who's averaging almost 14 points a game with 3 rebounds and 2 assists a game. He's playing really well, and he has a bright future too. I think he's a really talented player. He's explosive as hell. If he can figure out his shot a little bit more, you'd be even more thrilled with that. And he's on a young team in Minnesota, and they have a lot of potential moving parts. They They're one of those teams. Tibbs is trying to get them to play hard. They've dealt with a lot of injuries with D'Angelo, Karl Anthony Towns dealing with the COVID issues. But LaMelo has just been so impressive. And I think part of it, why he's even been more impressive, is because there was so many doubters and people who said, oh, well, this guy can't play in the league. We saw his brother come over here and just not be able to play well. His shot didn't translate, and he has a worse-looking jump shot. But he's come in and he's played spectacular, and he's confident. He looks like he belongs. He acts like he belongs, and he's made, which is very tough, the Hornets be a lot of fun to watch. They might be my favorite team to watch this year. I'd love betting on them, that's for sure, because they're tough. They cover. I think they're 15-11 against the spread. Pretty good. Pretty good team. They're a blast. And another rookie who, I can't believe this guy, who fell. People talked about him being a top 5 pick, and he just kept falling in the draft and falling in the draft, and it worked out so well for the Sacramento Kings because Tyrese Halliburton is phenomenal. Talk about another guy that had a funky-looking jump shot that people said, I don't think that can translate into the game. I don't think that jump shot works. Same thing that they said about LaMelo. And guess what? He's making it work. He's averaging almost 12 points a game. The Kings are sitting right there as a potential playoff team. They're on that doorstep of, well, maybe they get in. Maybe they get into the play-in tournament. Because that's going to come into the factor. Especially in the West, of that play-in tournament. And the Kings, can the Kings get in finally? They have some pieces, but Tyrese Halliburton gives them a bright future. And they should be thanking 11 other teams for the fact that they let him drop. Because he should not have been there at number 12. He has something about him that he's not afraid to shoot the ball, to take some big shots. We've seen him hit some clutch jumpers at the end of ball games. He playmakes for his team, averaging almost 6 assists a game. I really, really like Tyrese Halliburton, and I'm blown away at the fact that he dropped so far, and people didn't think. I don't know what teams were thinking. If it was the jump shot that scared him away that much, it was like, all right, but he can do so much other things. He plays hard. He hustles. He gets others involved. Tyrese might be my favorite player in this rookie draft. And there's another guy who I can't believe him. He came almost out of nowhere because he wasn't the most talked about guy. And Emmanuel Quickley for the Knicks is a pest in a good way. He reminds me so much of Lou Williams. And I think he when the Clippers and Knicks faced off against each other, he talked about it. He told Lou after the game, might have been during the game actually, how much he looked up to Lou and modeled his game after him. Because you watch him play, there are a lot of similarities there. Quickly's a lot of fun to watch. The Knicks, again, another one of those teams, like the Hornets, a lot more fun to watch because of the young guys that they have. It's not these dumpster fires. It's these kids coming along and injecting life into these franchises that for so long it's been nothing but disappointments. Bad draft picks. Misses. Then you get a couple steals. Like Emmanuel Quickley. Like a Tyrese Halliburton. LaMelo Ball so far proves, yeah, he does belong in the NBA. He is a blast to watch. It's so great to see because you obviously root for success. Especially in the league. You want teams to have success. You don't want to see rookies come in and fail. That's not good for the game. That's not good for anyone. And to get these guys who, 19, 20 years old, come in with no fear, playing with men, and they go out and ball. LaMelo Ball is starting now and producing and has his team in the playoff position. Anthony Edwards is the number 1 overall pick. So much pressure. Your number 1 overall pick. Everyone's going, oh, did the team mess up by choosing you over Wiseman, over LaMelo? Did they mess up? And he's averaging 14 points a game, putting up numbers. Now he can get better at shooting. He can get better at defense. Again, all these guys, they're young. It's going to come along. But the game is in such good hands because these young guys came in and they have no fear and they're ready to play. And it's a blast. It's so impressive. And there's always going to be guys in the rookie classes that play well, show out, show up, and there's going to be misses. But it seems like this year there is more, I don't want to say sleepers, but guys who are kind of coming up, not out of nowhere, but not from the usual positions of just the number fours or number fives or number six. Because for the Knicks, Emmanuel Quickley wasn't looked at as, oh, this is our top pick. He was the 25th pick in the draft. Obi Toppin was their number one. And while Obi Toppin, he's has a bright future potentially also. He's dealt with a lot of injuries that has hampered him. And so that's been tough because if you had him and Quickley playing extremely well, then you'd look and you go, well, this Knicks team has a extremely bright future, which for the long time, the Knicks have not been synonymous with bright future because James Dolan has led that team into a dumpster fire. James Wiseman, many people wondered, how do you bring along a 19-year-old to a Warriors team that is, for the last few years has been a dynasty, and they're looking to get back to that relatively quickly? How will he fit in? How do you break in a rookie while also trying to compete for the playoffs? How is that possible? How do you make that work? How explain that? And yeah, he's had some bumps and bruises and some rough patches, and he's learning and he's trying to figure it out. And hearing him talk post-game and just he's taking it day by day, day at a time, game after game, and he's learning a lot. Getting Draymond to yell at him, listening to Kevon Looney, Steve Kerr, Steph. He puts in a lot of effort, and he has a bright future too. And he's showing maybe had he had a full college season, not the NCAA messing around and being dumb like they always are, that he would have been the clear number one. And did the Warriors, did they jumpstart a potential dynasty by getting a young kid who, when the stars of Steph, Draymond, Clay start to fade out, and they're on the back end of the careers, well, they just got a young guy to pick it right back up and jumpstart that franchise again. I just love seeing these young guys come in and play really well. Because it's good, because it's a bummer to where in the NFL draft, you have a lot of first-round hits. For the NBA, it's usually less. You're usually looking at, okay, well, we got a couple hits here. And, oh, well, yeah, this guy plays well, but they're not very, they fade out very quickly. Right now, again, we're early on, and we don't have a ton to go off of, but for the short time being, guys like RJ Hampton, who went 24th to the Nuggets, is now playing in their rotation and playing legitimate minutes as a rookie. Peyton Pritchard, 26 to the Celtics. Yeah, he's getting a legitimate run with them. He's impacting the game. He's being a part of that lineup and helping them win games. Tyrese Maxey is an important piece for the Sixers. And if they want to have a finals run, which I think they might, they're going to need him to step up. Sadiq Bey, yeah, the Pistons are going nowhere. But at least he's showing flashes that, hey, we might have hit with their 19th overall pick. And it's not all bad. You hope Killian Hayes, who was their number one pick at 7, gets healthy and he is a sensation that you hope happens. You never know. But at least they have a guy who they look at and go, okay, one of our young pieces is doing really well and hitting. Cole Anthony, the son of Greg Anthony, is starting for the Magic. You have these rookies coming in right away and they're performing, which in years past for the NBA, it's not always the case. It's not like the NFL where a first round pick usually starts right away. yeah, you're going to have the number ones and the number 2 overalls and number 3s being those immediate impact guys. But it was always, okay, well, after those picks, where are they going to be at? How are they going to be? It's hit and misses. It's, we don't expect a ton from them. Well, that's changed this year, it seems. Because a lot more of these young guys are coming in right away, and they're ready to play. They're ready to contribute. Or at least they're not afraid to contribute. It's a lot of fun. And the league has such a bright future. Mixing in these young guys with some old veterans you get to watch each day. It's why I love the NBA. Day in and day out, you never know exactly who's going to step up. You have your superstars that you expect. Your Stephs, your LeBrons, your KDs, your Joelles, who we've mentioned tonight. But then you get some young guy like LaMelo Ball or Sadiq Bey, who goes off and has a career night for the Pistons. Or Cole Anthony, who hits a buzzer beater to win a game for the Magic. Isaac Okoro, who posterizes Nikola Jokic. James Wiseman, who you watch this big man run coast to coast, get a block, get a dunk, and the team just celebrates, and the bench is going wild. So happy that the league, that it seems that the younger guys and the top draft picks and everyone, they're starting to just come together and perform, and it's not just coming in and struggling right away and taking years to develop and learn how to play in the NBA game. Because for a while there, when we had the one-and-dones going rampant, and we still do have a lot of one-and-dones happening, but they were coming in and they didn't even know the college game really, and they were jumping to the pros, and it seemed to have a negative effect on the league as a whole, as you had a bunch of young guys coming in and flaming out quicker. And with the NBA now incorporating the G League and allowing high school kids to skip college and go through that route and go to the G League, as we're seeing this year with the Ignite and players like Jalen Green, who you hope that will help their development long-term even more so than going to college, because they will be surrounded by pros. They will be surrounded by pro-level coaches and playing against guys who have been in the league or at least know the game more advanced than, say, when they're going to a college, say they go to the SEC and they're facing off against talent that is just not equivalent to the NBA. And so I really like where the league's headed with all the young stars they have, and the future is bright, and it's just hopeful that they continue to produce these players who know and learn the game at a more advanced level, and it's not taking years for them to figure it out and setting franchises back. Because when a team does have a bad first-round pick or does struggle to draft guys, they're going to be in dark ages for years, and that's not good for anyone. That's not good for the league. No one wants to see that happen, because at the end of the day, you want to see these young guys come in and have success, because it's not fun to watch a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old who comes into the league, struggles, loses his confidence, and just floats around for years and bounces around all over the league. It's sad, and it seems that this season has been more of a positive in terms of guys getting drafted, guys being drafted later, finding their footing and being comfortable in the league. And yeah, you're always going to have guys who get drafted high that just don't pan out. You're going to have guys that get drafted low that are surprising stars. It's the way the draft works, because there's no one formula to this thing. But the more that we see guys consistently playing well, figuring it out, having confidence, and growing with a franchise, is just the better that the game will be for it. And I'm so thrilled with the league, and I'm so thrilled with this rookie class so far. Bright future. It's going to be fun to watch the rest of the year, seeing these guys and seeing who ends up winning the Rookie of the Year. And the sad thing is, I don't think we'll have the rookie all-star game, so the rookie sophomores, you won't get to see these guys playing against each other, but you still get to see them play game in, game out throughout the season. So it's fun to watch. I want them all to be healthy and continue to play well and just develop with their teams And who knows, maybe we'll see a Hornets team led by LaMelo in the playoffs. The Kings getting in after years with Tyrese Halliburton. Wiseman steps up and is the guy for the Warriors. Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves figure it out. And I know that's a long shot for right now, and they're in a bad spot. But hey, the future is bright for all of these guys, and the league is better off for it. And I just can't wait to continue to watch these guys play. It shows you that the league is in good hands. And that when we do lose our superstars of today, there will be some superstars of tomorrow that you can watch and enjoy their career just like you once did with the LeBron James, with the Steph Curry, with the Kevin Durant, and that the league is in good hands moving forward. So let's not be too hard on these guys just yet. They're young. They have a lot of potential to grow into. So if your franchise has one of these guys, be patient, enjoy watching, and tracking their career. I want to thank you guys for listening to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review, because it always helps. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night, and I'll talk to you guys later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.